Hello everyone, Ninja Nick back with another round 2 of day 2 of the Pokemon Trading Card Game World Championships. We have the Pedro mirror here, Pedro Eugenio Torres on the left versus Pedro Pertusi on the right. Both from the Latin America area. So yeah, we are seeing, it looks like Lost Box versus Gardevoir, so Lost Box should be favored in this matchup. It is, at the very least, a little bit favored because they can always chain their Sableyes, get rid of those Curlias really easily off the bench. You could even go for the Greninja play, knocking out 2 Curlias at the same time if maybe our right Pedro is not able to get the Manaphy down. So we will have to see. It looks like one of our 2 Pedros did win the coin flip, so we are going to see a Pedro going first, getting that Battle VIP pass in order to search the deck for 2 Pokemon to put on the bench. Of course, we are seeing the prize checking happening right here. You know, it's funny seeing 2 Pedros playing. Back around the time when I first started playing, there were quite a lot of Nicks in the area. So I would, and every championship point event would actually do a player meeting sorted by first name before they actually did round 1 in order to do announcements and stuff. Now they do them at the beginning of round 1s and just skip the player meeting step, which makes organization just slightly easier. But yeah, so I used to sit, there was Nick Race, there was a Nicky Morgan, a Nick Chimento, a Nick Giangelo. There's a few other, Nick Moffitt. So many Nicks in the game. Not so many anymore. But yeah, if you went to a Pokemon tournament, I think there was one tournament that I went to where there was like 5 or 6 Nicks all at the same time. And that was 2019. That was a 2019 League Cup. And it was in like Rhode Island or something. I actually, like, there was like a doubleheader in Rhode Island, and I went and I got in a hotel room just for myself for the one night so I could do both. I ended up getting top 4. I definitely got top 4 at one of them. I was playing Jolteon. I was playing that Jolteon Zapdos deck. And I beat Celosaur in Swiss and then hit it again in top cut, and it's an auto loss. So obviously I lost. I did my best, but so it looks like this is the Charizard Lost Box. We see that Hawlucha I love to talk about in that deck as well. Pedro Eugenio Torres definitely loves this Charizard version a lot better than the standard Lost Box version, just because their Charizard just has a lot of power. It is a little bit easier to chain Sableyes at times, but it is a lot less consistent in the early game because you do not have access to that Radiant Greninja, so you can always just not get to the cards you need in the Lost Zone. Just having a really hard time in that regard. So it looks like we do go for a Fog Crystal to find a Comfey, and now we are going to go for the Chorus's Experiment. So that's going to reduce the odds of finding another Comfey off of this. We do find the Hawlucha as well as double Battle VIP Pass. I think maybe you Lost Zone the Fog Crystal in one of the VIPs would be fine. Especially since you already have that one in the hand. I think really keeping a Hawlucha really feels great because you could always ping 2 Ralts. But, I mean, maybe you're not just going to get there fast enough. So, It looks like he is going to choose to get rid of the Hawlucha. Again, Hawlucha is more of a card that, like, plays around the fact that you need to have skill in Lost Box, in my opinion. Like, it is just really good. You could ping 2 70 HP Pokemon and then knock them both out with Sableye. But if you just prepare your Sableye's damage a little bit better in the 1 to 2 turns before that, you could always just play around that. Play around to needing the Hawlucha. It looks like we are going to battle VIP pass for a Cramorant as well as a Feebas. Feebas is a very interesting choice to go for in this deck. It is a Milotic line. Our Gardevoir player is having to read the Feebas. It does have an attack called Ascension. For 1 colorless energy, it can evolve straight from deck, thus ending your turn. So you can use that on your first turn going second, of course, because you're evolving by the effect of an attack. So it's perfectly fine to evolve in that way. But the Milotic has an ability. It's a Rapid Strike Milotic, actually. And it has the ability that says your hand is immune to the effects of your opponent's cards. So it makes it so your opponent can only ever Iono themselves and not Iono you. So Iono also actually reads, if either player put any cards to the bottom of the deck in that way, draw 6 cards. So if you were to have Iono as the last card in your hand and your opponent has Milotic, you actually can't play Iono because your opponent is not putting any cards on the bottom of the deck and neither are you. So the Iono cannot be played. Because at least one person has to put those cards on the bottom of the deck. So it's a really interesting interaction with the Milotic. And but the problem with that is this Feebas has 30 HP, and if you go into a Lost Box Mirror, you're just going to kind of lose to the fact that they could just place 3 damage counters on it and knock it out. Very easy to knock it out as well as a Comfey, so I'm not really sure if it's the best card to play, because you could always start it. It would force you to Ascension in the Mirror match just to have more HP. We also see the benching of the Articuno that has the ability where your water Pokemon do 10 more damage. So this Cramorant actually hits for 120 every turn, thus being able to one-shot the Cresselias. So an interesting tech inclusion there into the deck as well. We are going to put a Choice Belt down and then Lost Vacuum it away, getting rid of a Comfey that's in our hand here. In order to get to the 4 cards at minimum that we need in the Lost Zone, we have 5 now, and taking that knockout on the now active Ralts. So we see our Gardevoir player is going to attach a Choice Belt, an interesting inclusion to have in a Gardevoir deck. I don't ever normally see Gardevoir decks being playing the Choice Belt. I don't think that really does too much for you. It only really matters when you're attacking into a V Pokemon. I feel like it's a little bit better to just play Sky Seal Stone, because then if you do get the knockout with all the energies you have in play, your Zacian can take an additional prize. That Choice Belt would essentially be for the same matchups. And I'm hearing like these gunshot sounds outside. You gotta love living in a town like I do. I don't live in downtown, which is where all the shootings happen. I gotta love being in America, am I right? I'm in the nicer part of town, which is surprising for the rent I pay currently, but I used to live in downtown. That was a scary place, I'll tell you. We concealed cards, discarding a Psychic Energy to draw 2 more Psychic Energies. And our right Pedro does have shaking hands here. Looks like maybe he is a bit nervous, maybe because he knows he's in a bad matchup. But yeah, those hands are shaking very violently. That's how much my hands shake when I eat a whole box of cookies in one sitting, because I have no self-control. I'm honestly surprised I don't have diabetes at this point. It's honestly very concerning that I don't have diabetes. So definitely have to go hit the gym again. I keep seeing pictures of me from like when from pre-COVID, and oh my god, I looked so darn skinny. That's okay. The new place I'm moving to has a gym in there, and I still have a Planet Fitness membership. So, hopefully that will motivate me a little bit more. Looks like we are going to force Seal Stone for a rare candy here. We might actually be able to see the Gardevoir EX come out this turn, evolving one of those Ralts. Hopefully the Ralts with 60 HP. That way you kind of prevent your opponent from being able to do too much here. Looks like we also have the Gallade. So we're going to double rare candy. We're going to evolve into Gallade and to Gardevoir EX. Then use Gallade's ability to search for a supporter card. So that is actually really interesting to see the inclusion of the Gallade here in this deck. Not a lot of people play that. I have seen the, what do they call it? Reversal Guardy lists, where they play like 4 reversal energies, and they play the Gallade as well. And then I think they only have like 1 Gardevoir EX. I think those lists are absolutely terrible. I think you can play up to 2 reversal energies in a regular Gardevoir deck, but you have to play the 2 EXs. And I myself cannot find room for a Gallade in the deck. You would have to cut a Shining Arcana Gardevoir in order to fit it, in my opinion. So we are going to put 6 damage counters on our Zacian and retreat into it by putting 2 damage counters on the Mew as well. And get the 3 energy needed to hit for 150, the minimum damage output of this Zacian here. And take the knockout on the Cramorant, evening up the prize trade. Now our left Pedro can always just attack with Sableye this turn. Knock out the Mew on the bench, as well as put the remaining damage counters onto the active. And then do it again on the next turn. You can take 2 prizes on the active Pokemon. You will stay ahead in the prize trade. And at some point, we will also see the ability of the Charizard to be able to attack. We will see at least 2 fire energies in this list. The Charizard, the Radiant Charizard has an ability where it reduces the attack cost by 1 colorless for every prize card your opponent has taken. So it's really great in the late game to be able to just hit for 250. Much like the Genesect V's attack, you cannot use it 2 turns in a row. It makes it so you can't attack on the next turn. Even if you had some sort of tool card that allowed Charizard to have an additional attack, it's not that you can't use... I'm pretty sure it's not that you can't use Combustion Blast next turn. I think it's that you can't attack at all. Could be wrong about that, but either way, the Charizard in most situations is not going to be able to do much of anything. And if it does not get like immediately knocked out, or if you don't find like a switching card to be able to use it 2 turns in a row. But it's a very easy way to one-shot this Zacian as well, so we might be able to see that later. It would be really cool to see some damage counters get spread to the Gardevoir EX, so that is within range of having 250 HP left, so that the Radiant Charizard can clean that up later as well. So our left Pedro has quite a few options available to him, but it's going to start with getting 10 cards in the Lost Zone to activate Sableye. And here comes a Nest Ball for the Sableye. We are 2 cards in the Lost Zone away. We might be able to see maybe a Lost Vacuum play to get to the last 2 cards in there that you need. And then we'll see a Lost Mine come out. And again, I think it would be nice to see maybe the Mew go down and then the rest on the Zacian. You could always just spread the damage counters between the Gallade and the Gardevoir as well. The Gallade, I think, has 160, so you could put 4 damage counters there. And maybe you like knock out the Mew, put 4 damage counters on the Gallade, and then the rest on the Gardevoir. Wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, so 4, 4, and then you would have 4 left, so 4 on the Gardevoir. What does that put it at? It's at 310 HP to start, so 270. You're still a little ways off. Maybe you could just put the remaining 4 onto the Zacian. That would put it at 100 HP. Then it's at 120 remaining. Yeah, so I think you go 4 to the Gallade, 4 to the Mew, 4 to the active. And then on the next turn, you could knock out either the Gallade or the Zacian with the Sableye yourself. With your next Sableye, rather. God, I'm like jumping because I keep hearing these like gunshot sounds. I don't know if it's actually gunshots or if somebody's car is just like kicking the bucket. Well, if I die, I die. Then I don't have to finish packing for my move. Although then who's going to feed my cat? Yeah, see, that's the problem with that. So here comes the energy to the Sableye. We just need the one switching card in order to go into that Sableye this turn. So we should see that. I do see that there is a switch card in hand. Looks like we're actually going to go for the Stadium that gives a basic Pokemon one less retreat cost. You love to see that Sky Arrow Bridge has effectively been reprinted. Except it's called Beach Court this time, so. For those who only play the TCG and not the video game, Nimona, the card that allows you to draw 2 cards, or 3 cards, she's actually the champion, one of the champions in the video game. There's more than one champion in the game. The actual champion is pretty lame, but Gita. But Nimona's cool, and I wish they gave her a better card than draw 3. But her backyard is Beach Court. Like, that's literally in the back of her rich-ass parents' mansion. She has her own beach court. Yep, still hearing that weird gunshot sound. That's great. I hope that's not getting picked up by my mic, because it is loud enough it might be able to. It's actually, now it's happening so much it's scaring my cat now. She just ran past me and hid under the couch. Usually her safe space is under my bed, but I think the sound is coming from, like, the side of the building where my bed is. So maybe she feels safer on this side. Looks like we're going to put 3 to the... Oh, I guess maybe I was 1 damage counter off. I thought it was 4, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, he should have had... Oh, he put 1 on the Greninja as well. Oh, okay. So now the Greninja is within range of Sableye as well. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Maybe he is just trying to clean up the Zacian with the Charizard at some point, and trying to clean the 2 single prizers on the bench with the Sableye. I mean, as long as he trades single prizes back and forth, he should stay ahead of his opponent, especially with his opponent having 2 prize Pokemon in play. So here comes the Ino, is going to be able to shuffle both players' hands, put them on the bottom of the deck. That Milotic is not in play yet. So our left Pedro will be disrupted by this card. Looks like we are going to retreat. Only need to discard 1 energy for the retreat cost because of the Beach Court, which will mean that's less energy that can come into play from the Psychic Embrace, but I still think that this is fine. This is also another reason why you might not have wanted to spread as wide with the Sableye, is because the Cresselia then comes out and then heals a whole lot of damage off of your own board. So maybe that was a misplay from Pedro. It definitely felt like the right play, but of course, easily punished by this Cresselia here. Now, none of the Pokemon on our right Pedro side is going to be able to be knocked out by a single Sableye, except for maybe the Cresselia. But that can also get knocked out by just a Cramorant with that Articuno on the bench there. Looks like maybe that's a Manaphy off of this, the League promo Manaphy. So, might as well put that in Lost Zone. Your opponent is not playing any sort of way to hit you on the bench, so the Manaphy does not matter. You have your own Heavy Ball now. You can check your prize cards if you weren't already aware of what was in there. Looks like there are 2 Fire Energies and a Psychic Energy as well as a Colress. So, yeah, it looks like all of the Fire Energy in Pedro's deck were in the prize cards, so it might actually be really hard for left Pedro to be able to use Charizard at all. Looks like one of those fire energies is still towards the bottom, but it looks like that might be the second prize he'll take from here. So I think maybe prizing both of those fire energies might actually really come back to bite him here. So I think what he really needs to do, yeah, I think what he should have done was maybe not knock out the Mew and just put all 12 onto the Zacian. And then on the next turn, you might be able to knock out the Zacian and Mew at the same time. Or you could just, you could knock out the Mew for 4, and then you put the other 8 on the Zacian. It had 6 on it, so that would have left it with 100, and if it got healed by 20, it's still at 120. So yeah, I think that was the better way to spread the damage in hindsight. So we're going to 12 cards in the lost zone. I think we're actually still keeping track with dice on the side. I think it's completely irrelevant once you get past 10 in the lost zone to even keep track. Like on the stream, it should just say like 10 plus, because any card after 10 just doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is like in the finals, how many cards were in both players' discard piles because of the fantasy draft thing that happened. I'm pretty sure I bombed that because I didn't pick Mew V Max. I picked Arceus, what was it? My V Pokemon I picked was Arceus V, and my V Star I picked was Giratina. I was not expecting Mew to do well because I thought that Worlds players would have respected Mew a little bit more than they actually ended up doing. Because there is quite a lot of Mew in this field, and a lot of it is doing well, both in Day 1 and Day 2. More so in Day 2 than Day 1. So without being able to take a knockout here, this allows our right Pedro to be able to heal 20 off of the entire board yet again. And yeah, that's... And now our right Pedro will be able to take the prize lead away from left Pedro. So we're going to Pal Pad a couple of supporters back into the deck. We are going to attach return to our Gardevoir EX. That way we can start powering it up without having to have any damage counters on it, potentially. The Iono disrupts the hand yet again. Still no Milotic in play. Has not been able to find that. And that is one of the things about playing a weird evolution tech like that is... in this type of deck, in this Lost Box deck, you don't play Ultra Ball, so it's really hard to find a way to just be able to get to an evolution Pokemon like that. If you're playing like Giratina, like your whole focus around the deck is to try to power up Giratina, so you do have a couple of Ultra Ball in that deck usually. But not in this just regular like Sablezard type of Lost Box list. So it looks like we are moving the damage off of our board, choosing not to put any extra in play and just knocking out the Milotic so that we can, or the Feebas so that we can continue to play Iono. And the next top deck is the Milotic, knocking that out on the exact perfect turn. Yeah, you love to see that. That was a really great turn there. And this Zacian is almost completely healed off already. It will be able to be healed off in this next turn. We're going to use a Jet Energy to be able to promote this Comfey. And then Lost Zoning a Pokegear to keep this Charizard, but we still don't have any Fire Energy to be able to use the Charizard. So I don't even know if it's worth keeping it. Like, you have to find exactly Fire Energy here. He's going to bench the Charizard as well, because he knows that his hand could get disrupted yet again. He doesn't want that to go to the bottom of the deck, but now he's open to a boss's orders to be able to knock out that Charizard. So you play around the Iono, but now you play into the Charizard. We're able to free retreat, keeping that Jet Energy on the Comfey, and just hit for the knockout with the Cramorant because of the ability of that Articuno, boosting the damage by 10. And yet again, not finding either of those two Fire Energies. Pedro on the left is probably kicking himself for not playing 3 copies, because we're only in round 2 of the World Championships. I'm pretty sure that he did skip day 1, being one of the top players in Latin America. Maybe both of these players, in all honesty, because I have heard their names quite a few times before. So it looks like we are going to use the Gallade to search our deck for Boss's Orders. The Gallade being able to get us any supporter we want once a turn is an absolutely fantastic ability to have. So we are going to boss up that Charizard and likely just knock it out with our active Gardevoir EX. We can just put only 2 damage counters on it with its own ability, because we can also attach for turn, as we did in an earlier turn, being able to set up for this play where it's not going to be too afraid of a Charizard. It's got too much HP remaining, and you're also knocking out the Charizard. And it looks like we might be replacing the stadium as well. Is that a Temple of Sinnoh? That will be shutting off the effects of any more jet energies that may come into play. Okay, my Alexa just flashed blue for a second. It was listening to me. Also, there's like a little tiny fly here. He's been like buzzing around for a week. I like can't seem to catch him. He's like this tiniest little thing. So yeah, we're 3 prizes to 2 now. And what exactly do you do here? The Jet Energy still does count as 1 colorless. It just no longer has the effect to move the Pokemon to the active when you attach it. So still able to retreat here. Use our next Flower Selecting is going to get rid of Manaphy. Oh, is he playing double Manaphy in the deck? Because he already lost on the League promo Manaphy before. And this is something about what I say about making sure you play all of the same art of a Pokemon, because if you have 1 League promo Manaphy and then a second Manaphy in the deck, and you see 1 of each of them each game, you know your opponent's playing 2. But of course, both of them are in the Lost Zone now, so your opponent obviously knows you play 2. And it isn't relevant in this matchup anyway, so you can allow your opponent to have that information. But if they have friends that are on a different deck, and they play you later in the tournament, they can say, hey, they have double Manaphy, and then they could potentially prepare for that. But looks like that's just going to be a scoop, and Pedro, right side, is going to end up winning that game with the Gardevoir deck. Again, Lost Box is supposed to be favored into Gardevoir, but it seems like this Charizard deck is just a little bit too inconsistent without the ability to use the Radiant Greninja. And we are just going to go straight into game numero 2. It's not a word, Nick. So we will skip ahead a little bit to make sure we go straight into game 2. Now, we only have 21 minutes left in the match as well. Nothing super relevant prize for both players. Yeah, it's not too bad. We do start the Articuno. Not the best start. You'd prefer the Comfey, but it's still fine, because you want it in play anyway. So maybe it feels a little bit better than starting like Sableye. It's going to have the judge place out the prize cards for them. That's one of the great things about having table judges, is that you can use them to your advantage to get those prize cards laid back out to save you that little bit of time, that all-important time. It looks like we still have 17 cards in the Lost Zone on the left. Hopefully that gets fixed. Alright, so we do Fog Crystal here, find ourselves another Comfey, so we can Flower Selecting yet again. This should put a second card in the Lost Zone, not an 18th. It just starts counting backwards, then disappears off the screen. Yeah, whoever's in charge of Pokemon's OBS is, got to get a little bit more on top of that. Must have took a coffee break for a second. We're going to get a second card in the Lost Zone. That is a Raihan. That is an important card for chaining your Sableyes together in this specific deck, but I think you can afford to get rid of it this turn. We are going to go for the Feebas onto the bench again. Not really learning from game 1 about how the Milotic is really just a dead card you can't find in the deck. We're going to just get that back out. Just getting it down turn 1 so that if at any point we draw into our Milotic, we will be able to prevent ourselves from being Ionoed. And we'll have to see if this game even finishes. Game 1 took so long. If this game takes just as long, they will not finish by the end of turn 3 of time. We do have 2 cards in the Lost Zone. They still have not updated the Lost Zone counter. So, yeah. Fire that guy. Also, it would be nice if the person that is working the stream has like a wider angle view so that they can see all the stuff that's like cut off on the sides. Because then that would help them. They can go and actually look at the Lost Zone and manually count if they have to. Oh, looks like the Lost Zone counter got fixed again. Yeah, if there's a Lost Box deck on stream, you definitely have to be on top of that. If there's not, nobody cares. Like, nobody cares about the Lost Zone count in Mew. Or Gardevoir. Arceus. I mean, I guess unless Arceus is playing both Chorus's Experiment and Cryptomatic, like I always joke about. Also, Pikachu holding the Ramen Bowl that just flashed off the screen got replaced by the Quaxley with tea. Definitely making me kind of hungry. Might go for some ramen tonight, actually. I haven't had ramen in forever, actually. For a while, I was on like a peanut butter and jelly kick, so I just ate like nothing but peanut butter and jelly for like 3 weeks. Definitely made me feel sick to my stomach. So we are getting out as many Ralts as possible here, as you should do with the Gardevoir deck. You are always fearful of the turn 2 Sableye, and that could really punish you for not getting these Ralts into play. If you were able to go first and play the correct Kirlia, you could always Mirage Step into 3 of those, but that could potentially put you 2 prize cards behind in this matchup. And while it helps you get to your Gardevoirs as fast as possible to make sure that you have the most HP in play as possible, it can sometimes backfire a little bit by letting your opponent take that prize lead. So you really, really have to like do your Cresselias at the right time and attack with Gardevoir EX in certain situations. Looks like we are going to go for the Zacian here. We could actually attach for turn to that, and then... Ooh, I'm not sure if I agree with that. So I think what I would have done is I would have attached for a turn to the Zacian, and then Roar the Sword to the Zacian. I would have left the Ralts in the active spot. If my opponent plays an Escape Rope, I would then put up the Radiant Greninja. I do not like the retreat there. You could have also even used the Teleportation Burst to do 10 damage to a Comfey, and then put it on the bench, but getting the energy in the discard pile is better. But now, on the next turn, you're not able to attach for a turn to load up a undamaged Zacian, and that's the time when Zacian is best in this matchup, is when you put one active with no damage on it and are able to just take 2 prizes back to back with it. So yeah, I definitely think that it would have been better to just leave the Ralts active so that you could conserve that energy to attach to the Zacian. And then, of course, you kind of force your opponent to not be able to play the Escape Rope. And, of course, left Pedro does not even have Escape Rope in hand, so ends up being the correct play somehow for right Pedro. We're definitely playing around that damage, but the thing is now your Greninja gets hit for 110, and then on the next turn you could, or 120 actually, and on the next turn you could see the Hawlucha actually come down, knocking out the Greninja and putting 10 damage to one of the Ralts, and then taking out the 60 HP Ralts and the 70 HP Ralts. if you do not find like the entire Kirlia Gardevoir Brigade this turn, and one of your Kirlias is already in the discard from that research you played on the last turn as well. So I don't like the position that the Gardevoir is in at the moment. We are going to Ultra Ball away another Ultra Ball and a Psychic Energy, losing access to so many Ultra Ball resources here right now to get a Kirlia. So we will have double Kirlia here. We're going to definitely need to find double Rare Candy and double Gardevoir, or a Gardevoir and a Gallade. If we could find maybe the Gardevoir EX and the Gallade, would be really great. We are going to go for the Iono here, so really great that that Milotic is not in play yet. We will be able to disrupt our opponent's hand, but I think they are getting more cards, so maybe it is a benefit to them. And hey, look, they do play Fire Energy. There's one in the discard pile and one in hand. Who would have thought? We are going to search our deck for yet another Kirlia. So, I mean, as long as you get one Rare Candy with the Gardevoir EX, you should be feeling really fine here, because you need to be able to attack with the Zacian this turn. Otherwise, you are going to be potentially 2 prize cards behind. It would also be really great if you, instead of Ionode, were able to play Penny to be able to pick your Radiant Greninja back up out of the active. But if you are able to attach to it and retreat into the Zacian, then you could actually collapse Stadium yourself, knock the Greninja into the discard pile, and that would actually be really great here. So here we're going to go for the third Kirlia. We do have the Gallade in hand. We're going to discard the Mew, draw 2 more cards. Do we have our Rare Candy Gardevoir EX in order to be able to attack this turn, as well as an energy to attach for turn? We have Rare Candy, Gardevoir EX. Do we have the energy we can attach? There is a Fog Crystal at the very least in hand. Oh, and I forgot about the Stadium. He has free retreat from the Stadium. He doesn't have to attach to his Greninja. He can just use one ability to put 20 on the active, which is basically undamaged, and now take the knockout. So did not find the Collapse Stadium. It would have been great to see the Greninja retreat with the Beach Court and then play the Collapse Stadium to discard it. But, you know, we got about everything else we wanted as a Gardevoir deck that turn, so I'm not sure you can really complain about not getting that. But we will see a 2 prize turn if we get to the 10 cards in the Lost Zone this turn. We even get the Colress's Experiment, so we just need 2 more cards in the Lost Zone, 1 more card in the Lost Zone. We have an Escape Rope, we have an Energy. Do we have a switching card? Yes, we do. Yeah, we have the Escape Rope. So we can Escape Rope into our own our second Comfey here. Looks like we're going to put the Greninja in the active spot. Would make the most sense in case it does get hit by a Cramorant. Instead, you're making your opponent get the least value out of their damage. Second Sableye comes down. We're going to attach for turn to one of them, use the Beach Court to retreat, and now we are able to, yeah, and if that Beach Court was replaced with the Collapse Stadium, not only would this Greninja not be able to go down, but Left Pedro would have had to find one more switching card in order to be able to go for this play. But it looks like we are knocking out one Kirlia, the Greninja, and putting 3 damage counters on another Kirlia, so not the best spot to be 2 prize cards behind now, but we could still always go for the Cresselia to start healing off our own Pokemon. We could start evolving into high HP things, and always just maybe try to Iono our way around the potential Charizard turn. So we're going to really hope that our opponent does not get to the Milotic at all during this game. Thinking about Super Rodding here, probably put back the Ralt and the Kirlia, and probably nothing else. I don't think there's anything else. Oh yeah, and the Greninja, of course. You don't really want the Mew in this matchup. So yeah, gonna leave the... Wait, did he leave the Mew? He left a Kirlia there. Did he actually put the Mew back? Because I saw the Mew in there, I thought. I missed it. It happened a little too fast. It's kind of like PTCG Live, where they never show you what gets put back into the deck from a Super Rod or a Palpad. Looks like we are going to discard the Fog Crystal instead of using it to search an energy first. That's normally what I would always do, is use it to search an energy. You thin your deck of one more card We do draw into the Greninja again. Yeah, we're going to discard Fog Crystal yet again. Although I guess in this matchup, you want to conserve the energy in deck in case your Greninja does get forced into the active spot so you can attach and retreat. So probably has enough energy in the discard pile, so that would actually make sense. If I still had a Pokemon like the Mew left in deck, I probably would have used the Fog Crystal to grab that, to thin that, and then discard it. Looks like we are going to go for the Iono. Limiting left Pedro's hand down to 4. He did have quite a bit. He had Fire Energy and Charizard. So you want to always make sure you keep him out of that if possible. Looks like he does find a... Yeah, he does have a Hollow promo Manaphy. So he's definitely playing 2. We do see the Roxanne. That is still 1 turn too early. But he does have a Psychic Energy for the Sableye. So at worst, he... has the Sableye in the active go down. He can just promote the second Sableye, attach the energy, and then take a prize. So we are going to retreat here. We're going to use the ability of the Gardevoir to stack some damage counters and some energy into play, so that we then can heal that damage off and use it to knock out a Sableye. So that leaves Gardevoir with just 10 damage left on it. Not too bad of a number to see on there. Has a full 300 HP left, having 2 Gardevoir EXs in play. So this is another situation like the last game where there's just so much HP on Gardevoir's board that I don't know what the Sableye deck can even do against it. We do finally find the Milotic here, though. But here we promoted the Comfey. I guess we have the Beach Court, though, so we can free retreat it, so that makes sense. We're going to Fog Crystal for another Comfey. Probably just put that on the bench, thin the deck, get those cards that were put on the bottom of the deck back towards the top. Because that is one of the important things to remember about the Iono, is it does put cards on the bottom of the deck. So that Charizard needs to be shuffled so that it can potentially get back to the top. Also going to Pokegear here, maybe to try to find a supporter card like Colress. Looks like we are going to find a Clara that can always get you back double Sableye, double Psychic Energy, which is really great in combination with that Beach Court. If that doesn't get replaced, you can just put down double Sableye again, attach to one of them, free retreat into it, and just keep that Sableye chain going. Looks like we are going to use the Clara now. We're going to get back the 1 Sableye as well as the Psychic, the Water, and is that the Cramorant as well? Yeah, it looks like the Cramorant. So we could actually attack with the Cramorant this turn instead of the Sableye to knock out the Cresselia, but I'm not sure if that's correct, because then your opponent just recycles the Cresselia, knocks out the Sableye on the bench, and then it's a lot harder for you to put that together. Looks like we are going to finally put that Milotic, the Rapid Strike Milotic, into play, so our opponent can no longer Iono us, and we're going to take a prize card off of this Cresselia. But again, our Gardevoir player's board is 2 Gardevoir EXs, one with 310 HP, one with 300, a Zacian with 220 HP, and a Gallade with 160 HP. That is also a 1-prizer. So, it's going to be really hard to set up this Charizard to be able to clean house, because the only thing it can really knock out is the Zacian. So you could always see potentially the Charizard get benched on this next turn, and then Raihan attach for turn. But the Clara actually contradicts that play, because you just removed all the energy from your discard pile. And also, YouTube's being a little choppy right now. I'm pretty sure that's the actual live stream, though. Or maybe not. Maybe it is me. Oh my god, dude. Let me see if it's me or not. It'll tell me. No, it's not me, because the timer is still I'm blocking the time, but it is still counting up, so it was Pokemon's fault. Okay. Or at least Pokemon's The convention center's internet's fault, maybe. I might refresh YouTube after this game anyway, just in case it is my fault somehow. So we are going to attack with the Zacian here, putting 2 damage counters on that. Oh yeah, it's definitely Pokemon. Okay. What are they doing here? They're trying to like refresh it so it stops skipping. So it looks like we took the knockout with the Zacian on the Milotic, so we were able to boss up the Milotic, knock it out so that we can Iono yet again. And we do get Rock Sand in return, unfortunately. We don't really have any good ways to draw cards on the board, but at the very least, we do have the Gallade to be able to search for supporter cards. So we could always maybe get a Professor's Research, maybe another Iono on the next turn. Would be really great. So I feel like this version of the Gardevoir that has the Gallade in it is probably the best against Lost Box, because you can always search your Ionos out every turn, or your boss's orders to get rid of those pesky Milotics that exactly one player plays. So now we have 2 Sableyes in play, both with a Psychic Energy, but nothing that they can knock out this turn. So we are on even prizes, but we're not able to take a knockout this turn unless we go exactly Raihan to the Charizard. And I don't know if we can Raihan to the Charizard if we just used Roxanne and don't have any energies in the discard pile. So now this just allows your opponent to search the deck with the Gallade for another boss's orders to knock that out instead of the Sableye. We do see the Choice Belt going down on it, so it's going to hit 280 on any V Pokemon. And we are going to retreat into the Sableye so that we can do 120 damage counters. So, do you spread wide, or do you just put it all on one Pokemon? It's a bit of a hard decision. I think you try to put the Gardevoirs within 250 HP. So we've got 6 on one, and then 6 on the other, and then maybe just put the last damage counter on the active? Yeah, looks like that's fine. So both Gardevoirs on the bench have exactly 250 HP remaining, so we're probably going to be looking to take knockouts with the Charizard each turn from now on. So the thing with benching the Charizard is it does bait your opponent into a boss's orders play instead of the Iono play. So maybe he doesn't... Yeah, maybe he just... Maybe he would rather get bossed than Iono'd, but I don't think his hand looks very strong either. So you gotta figure there's another boss left here. Whether it's in deck or maybe you can PAL pad one back in. We know he's played one boss's orders so far already. Looks like we're actually gonna search for the penny. Are we? Because we could penny the Zacian back into hand. It would remove that 2-prize option from the board for the Charizard to be able to knock out. And then we could Cresselia to heal. Yeah, I'm not quite sure if he did search for that or not because of the skippiness of it. Yeah, it looks like he did. Then we Super Rod back in the Cresselia. We're going to Forest Seal our active, use the Forest Seal Stone to find the Cresselia. And now we can pick the Zacian up so it's no longer in play, no longer threatened by the Charizard, and heal the damage onto both Gardevoir EXs so neither of them are within range of the Charizard either. I think if you're going to choose one of the 2 Sableyes to knock out, I think you choose the benched one because the active one would have to be moved if you want to use a Flower Selecting again. So force your opponent to waste yet another additional resource in order to potentially find more cards. Whereas if you knock out the active one, that allows your opponent to promote the Comfey instead. Under the Beach Core is extra good for them. So yeah, Penny here. Pick up your entire Zacian. He's going to put the Gallade active. He could always attach to the Gallade and retreat to get those energies back into the discard pile. His attack does do 160 and moves an energy from the... Oh, yeah, so he's going to put 1 to the active to retreat it. so it has 20 damage on it. And then we're going to put one onto the Cresselia from the discard pile, which puts 20 on it, so we can do a full 80 damage, knocking out one of the Sableyes. We're even thinking about attaching for turn to the Gallade so that we can go for the same play again on the next turn. So, yep. We're going to Psychic Embrace to the active, and then we're going to heal the whole board of 20 damage each. Forcing that damage to the benched Sableye, right? Benched Sableye? Or are we going to go for a Comfey instead? That's an interesting decision. I suppose that's fine because your opponent already has a Sableye in play for the next turn, so does it really matter if they have two as opposed to one? You're really fearful of the Charizard exactly. Those Sableyes are pretty easy to knock out with enough energies from your discard pile. He only needs 2 energies from the discard pile on this next turn. If the Sableye does knock out the active, you just have to Super Rod yet again and find the Cresselia yet again. I mean, if you have Artisan, you could always Super Rod it back into the deck and Artisan it back out. It's not really too hard to find a Pokemon from your discard pile, putting it back into the deck and back into play with Gardevoir. So we are seeing an Escape Rope. We are going to put our Comfey active now. Use its flower selecting. We do find Super Rod Clara. Gonna get rid of the Super Rod to keep the Clara so that maybe we can get back a Sableye in a future turn. I'm not sure what either of those cards even do for you at this point. I think you've definitely lost the game. We're also in turns is very important. It looks like the timer is on 0, so I do think our player on the left is turn 1. And yeah, since that Cresselia is no longer in the active, you definitely have to go for Sableye as your attack this turn, because that is the scariest thing on the board for you, is the Cresselia, and it's also the only thing you can knock out in one hit. The other thing that you could do, I suppose, is just spread 60 to each Gardevoir, and then try to boss knock it out with Charizard 2 turns in a row, but I don't even think that's possible, because, yeah, I don't think you have enough turns to be able to piece that together, especially since you just got rid of the Super Rod. You can't Super Rod the Charizard back into the deck. You opted for the Clara instead, so you can't boss at the same time as that. So you're really going to have to win off of the power of these 2 Sableyes for the most part. Yeah, you can take 1 knockout on the Cresselia this turn, but then how do you get the remaining 2 prizes on your next turn? Those Gardevoirs were too well healed, and that penny really mattered. Picking up that Zacian, that's probably one of the coolest plays I've seen so far throughout this tournament. One of the most skilled plays, because you could have always just retreated it and healed the damage off of it, leaving it with 10 damage left, but then that would have opened you up to the Charizard Boss's Orders play. So, yep, we are going to go for the Lost Mine, knocking out the Cresselia. And now, I mean, we could always just see a Swirling Slice for the knockout this turn. And Pedro could, left Pedro could always just Lost Mine the active, potentially, for a knockout, if you have to put 2 energies from the discard pile into play. But, of course, you don't, because you attached 1 for turn, so none of these Pokemon will be able to be knocked out. And we're even going for the Iono for good measure, already having that in hand, not having to search it out with the Gallade at all. And yeah, both players are going to draw 2 cards. And, of course, Pedro Pertusi has enough in play, enough Pokemon in play to be able to close this game out. So we're going to Swirling Slice, putting one of the energies from this Gallade to the bench. We're going to put it to one of the Gardevoir EXs. And this is actually going to be turn 3, it looks like, is Pedro Eugenio Torres' last turn is turn 3. So he has to win the game this turn in order for this match to be a tie. Game 2 being in turns. We have a fire energy here. We could always just attack and take 1 prize and tie this game up, but that's not going to win you the game. You were 1 prize card behind this match. It's very unfortunate to see, but you just really just whiffed a little bit too hard because your opponent was just able to Iono you a little bit too well every turn. We do find a Boss's Orders here. We can boss up a Gardevoir retreat into the Charizard, attach a fire, and knock it out if we had more damage to do, I suppose. We're doing... So that would leave them at 290, right? Yeah, so that's not enough. You're not quite there. And just hit for 290 on the one that has no energy on it. It can't move. So I guess you could have won on your subsequent turn because it can't move, but unfortunately you did not have the time to be able to pull that out. So Pedro Pertusi, right Pedro, is the one who is able to win that match. So props to him. As always, guys, do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe. It's really important for the YouTube algorithm. And we will see you guys next time as the fly gets really close to me. Can I kill it? Can I kill it? I think I missed it.